We've thrown a few more logs on the fire and the sun's just going down, and I love that moment when the light fades but you've actually got some flickering flames to cook by, and it just feels like a lovely atmospheric time. But also we've got lovely heat here. I can feel that in front of me. I'm going to do a dish now that builds up a little bit like the previous one, and it's going to start with some more delicious veg, different type, and then we're going to have some fish and finish it with a little bit of meat as well. Sounds a bit strange, but you'll see it come together. What's definitely a bit strange is that I'm going to put these whole pods of broad beans, just picked broad beans, just kind of around the far edge, and they're going to just sit there heating up, because basically I'm roasting the beans in their pods. I'm not going to eat the pods. You can do that when the broad beans are tiny baby, but these are getting on a bit. But this is just to steam the beans in their pods, and then they'll become part of the finished dish. So I want to get them quite close to the edge. I'll move them around from time to time. Oh, one in the fire. Hasn't been in there very long. And the other veg, which I've sliced fairly thinly, a little bit like the courgettes, which goes brilliantly with fish, of course, is fennel. And these are nice midsummer fennel bulbs. And again, I'm putting the stalky bit right to the edge, just like we did with the cabbage. Nice to hear that sizzle. Fennel's great. It's got that aniseed flavour that goes so well with fish, but it's also got quite a lot of natural sugar, which caramelizes beautifully on the grill here. And I like that those flames are just licking over the edge and adding a touch of smokiness too. Really, these very tasty veg, the sweet aromatic fennel and the bittersweet broad beans, are going to be a counterpoint to one of my favourite shellfishes that's just made for going on the Vulcanus, and that's these beautiful hand-dived scallops. They're about as fat as they get, with lovely orange corals, which are also delicious. And while the veg sizzles away, I'm going to season up the scallops and get them ready to go on too. I just think we need to shift the balance of this fire, so I'm just going to move a log from here to there. Nice. Should even things up. Sizzle on. Right, these beautiful meaty scallops get a simple seasoning, a sprinkling of garlic, that's roughly chopped, not too fine, and a sprinkling of chili flakes, and the salt and pepper they'll get as they cook. But I am going to give them a tiny trickle of oil because I don't want them to stick, so I'm going to give them a little trickle. I do need to keep an eye on that fennel, but to be honest, the sizzling noise is reminding me that it's going to need some attention quite soon. So just a very light rub of oil onto those scallops to get a proper sizzle when they go. Maybe I can be a tiny bit more generous with that chili now. So that very light film of oil on the scallops means that I'll get a nice sizzle when they hit the hot plates. How's this fennel doing? Look at the colour on that, really perfect. It's not going to take long, the fennel, and if I end up taking the fennel off before I put the scallops on, that's not a problem. Look at those lovely little spots of char on the fennel. And I know we're going to get a nice smoky flavour from the wood smoke just licking over the edge of the hot plate. Now, by the time I've turned over the last one, that one will probably be ready to come off, and then we can put the scallops on. And as for those broad beans, I just need to keep shuffling them around a bit. They are getting a bit of colour, but the important thing is that the heat gets right into the middle of them, because it's not the outside of the bean that I'm after here, it's really cooking, steaming the bean through in the middle. So actually the beans first on and probably last off, to make sure that the beans in the middle are cooked right through. We've got a nice little breeze going. Okay, as with the veg dish, a little trickle of oil is going into the final serving dish as a sort of dressing with a sprinkle of salt. There's some familiar things happening here. The veg component is being cooked in a very similar way to the previous dish, and I'm making that little dressing of oil and lemon, so that when the fennel comes hot off the plate, it goes straight into that dressing. You know what, I can slide them all straight over there, flip them in, look at that, bing bang bong. And the heat's gonna pick up the lovely flavors of the dressing, the olive oil, the salt, the pepper, the lemon juice, and now we've got a little bit of space. And I like the fact that the next two ingredients are going to go on the same bit of the grill. I'm sure there's a little bit of fennel flavour left on the plate, and that's going to transmit itself into the scallops. But you know what? I mentioned meat, and there's a really fantastic combination that's sort of a kind of Portuguese thing of salty pork with shellfish. And this is a version of that. And this pork, which is minced, is not just salty, it's spicy. In fact, we call this our Tupperware chorizo. It's not in a sausage casing. It was made a day or two ago, so all the spices in it have mingled. There's lots of paprika, garlic, there's some fennel seeds. It's just a lovely, delicious kind of combination. And I'm just going to put this onto the grill initially as a sort of patty, but I'm going to then break that up a little bit later and crumble it, because I want to mix it with the scallops. So let's put one there, one there, and we've got two more, one there, and one there. Take that off, and now let's get the scallops on in and around the same kind of zone. So remember, there's a little bit of garlic, a little bit of chilli, and a fantastic sizzle going down now. What about that for a sizzle? The minced pork in the chorizo is quite fatty. Oh, that's happening fast, isn't it? That's lucky I got that just in time. Now, this is where I see something happening a tiny bit faster than I want it. So I just move it back into the cool area. Flip that as well. It's not so fast over there. And then I'm moving the scallops over to where the chorizo was. So I'm now sizzling the scallops. Look at that, I'm sizzling the scallops. It's taken up the golden colour of the fat from the chorizo. So similar with that one there. In it goes. Look at the colour on that now. Isn't that beautiful? Moving that over there. So we're mingling the sweetness of the scallops with that beautiful spicing of the chorizo. And this is really happening now, isn't it? I love the speed at which this is all coming together. I love the fact that we got the flames licking over the edge of the hot plate. It's definitely a little bit hotter over here. And now I'm actually breaking up our little chorizo patties. I know they look very friendly and easy to eat, but what I want is what we call chorizo crumbs, so that I can toss everything together at the end. Break this one up as well. Moving the scallops in and amongst the chorizo. Picking up all those flavours. Oh. 3-second rule. Definitely observed there. I'm just starting to move everything back a little bit because we've got a load of heat. Not quite so much over here. In fact, I'm going to move that forward. How are my broad beans doing? I'm wondering if they're actually going to be steamed through. They might be. The broad beans might be the last bit to come together, because one thing you learn very quickly with Vulcanus is the way the wind direction is will affect the heat of each of the sort of 4 plates. And I've actually put the beans in the cool zone because the breeze is coming this way, so the heat's coming towards me here. It's very fierce here and here, a bit less so here, and my beans are going slowly. They'll probably get there in the end. Now, these guys are cooked really. Just look at the colour on that. That's, oh. Okay. I think this is a good moment to bring the dish to the scallops rather than the scallops and the chorizo to the dish. Just going straight in on top of the fennel. And you know what? Little trick. Just pop that there so it stays warm. Let me move these beans over into the hot zone to finish them off. These guys can come off. I'm just going to put these beans on the plate. Now, it's the beans in the pods that I'm after, and they're obviously a bit hot to handle. So I'm just going to let them sit on the plate for a while, and the residual heat will help to steam through the beans. And in a couple of minutes' time, I should be able to pod them. While that's happening, I'm just going to give the fennel and the chorizo and the scallops a really good tumble so that everything mingles together. Look at that. And although I did put a touch of chili and a pinch of garlic on the scallops, most of that seasoning has come from the chorizo, those lovely juices, the fat that ran onto the hot plate and then sizzled around the scallops. It's put colour on them, and where that colour is, I can promise you there is flavour. That is a very hearty plate, and all it needs to set it off is a few little green beans. Here we go. They are hot, but my fingers are working fast. And that is a deliciously creamy, bittersweet broad bean with a touch of smokiness that's come up from the fire. That's really delicious. And these beans are going to finish off this dish brilliantly. But I mustn't be too eager because they are still a little bit hot to handle. But look at them. This is where you need your little helpers. Well, not too little, of course, they are going to burn their fingers. Probably, if I was doing this again, I would give the broad beans a 10-minute head start on the rest of the dish. Or I wouldn't put them on the cool part of the Vulcanus. But we got there in the end. These beans are beautifully steamed through. It's a little bit like popping out those edamame beans that you get in Japanese restaurants. And that is the last bean out of its pod. And some of these really fat ones, I've just slipped the beans out of their jackets. That gives a tiny bit more of that fresh green colour. That's going into the dish. It's all going to get a final tumble. Let's get some of those party scallops in all their glory on the top. And that's it, the broad beans have been tumbled through, and to me this really is a great mingling of flavours. You've got the sweet aniseed fennel, the creamy bittersweet broad bean, you've then got that succulent scallop, and then the salty spicy tang of the chorizo, and it's all muddled up together in the most brilliant combination of flavours. And I have to say the Vulcanus made light work of it. Great job.